Stellar Blade was unveiled in late 2021 as Project Eve. It was then followed up in 2022 with a new trailer, and then went dark until a recent trailer put it firmly back in the limelight. With a ton of hyperactive, over-the-top imagery and gameplay, and its release hiding just around the corner like an enemy ready to pounce, we've been putting it through its paces to let you know our thoughts on it right now. Is it too much style over substance? Well, we'll see. Straight off the bat, I've said this before on the channel. I'm not the biggest fan of Souls-like games, but I do enjoy a good action RPG. Stellar Blade seems to be something of a perfect fusion of the two on paper, and in terms of gameplay, it does a bang-up job. Something akin to Devil May Cry meets Bloodborne with a neat sci-fi twist. It's enough to keep my attention, that's for sure. I'm not going to get into any spoiler territory with any of the story stuff here, but the game sees you play as Eve, a member of an elite squadron of all-female fighters tasked with eradicating the Naytiba, a swarm of mutated enemies on planet Earth. Combat is fast, devastating and effective. Melee combos can be mixed up with grenades and ranged attacks to provide an immensely satisfying array of encounters with the Naytiba, with more powerful attacks being built up by dodging, parrying and attacking in the form of beta skills and burst attacks. These can often turn the tide of battle and slice a foe in two. There's a hefty skill tree spread across 5 different areas, allowing you to pull together quite an impressive arsenal. I'll fully admit that it took me a while to get used to the timing when it comes to the dodges, but when you nail one and stick a counter attack into a slimy tentacled face, chef's kiss, super satisfying. And then there's the Alpha Naytiba, hulking great bosses that pepper the game with enough grunt and force to make Father Gascoigne himself blush. They'll have you frantically learning their attack patterns and coming up with counter strategies long after you've switched off the PS5. I've started with a positive, primarily to fulfill the reviewer's obligation of a shit sandwich, with the filling being a little less appetising than the surrounding bread. Unfortunately, some of the other control elements within Stellar Blade are less than stellar. Movement can be extremely janky in some places. When you approach small objectives, such as the vending machines, which are used to unlock the encampments in the game, things like crates and other elements in the world, it sometimes takes a couple of tries to get to due to the animations. One early segment in particular was a platforming section, and it needed some pretty precise jumping, lest Eve fall to a quick respawn and a hit to the health. Due to the finicky controls, I saw myself either overshooting or dropping off a ledge a few too many times, which led to a ton of frustration. It's not game-breaking by any stretch, and the focus is definitely more on the combat rather than the exploration, which is where the game excels, but it's definitely an annoyance. Points to a weird lack of polish in a game that otherwise is incredibly shiny. And that's the thing, Stellar Blade looks absolutely incredible. Its environments are fantastic, whether it's an open, arid wasteland, an abandoned subway tunnel, a ramshackle shantytown for a collection of survivors, or some of the incredibly futuristic internals. Every inch of Stellar Blade looks fantastic. It runs really well too, barely dipping below a steady 60 in the balanced mode. There is a quality mode, but for games like this, 30 frames a second is a definite no-go. I tried it briefly and almost immediately switched it back. Enemies are incredibly detailed, and the character models are, well, let's just say lovingly crafted, for the most part. It is incredibly difficult to talk about Stellar Blade without forming an opinion on the inevitably polarising character designs. Look, I'm in my late 30s. I've seen my fair share of risque games in my time. This is not a political statement or a political stance, or we're not that kind of channel, but there is an element of being unable to take a game too seriously when every female character in the game has seemingly been designed with jiggle physics in mind. And it's 2024 and I've just used the phrase jiggle physics in a review. It reminds me of the worst elements of Hideo Kojima's game design, where there's something absolutely phenomenal hiding under a layer of someone going boobies. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a prude, and there's absolutely a place in gaming for sexualized characters. You know, games like Bayonetta, for example, that remains one of my favourite character action RPGs. But when even the unlockable outfits all feature some degree of lingerie on show, whether it's stockings and suspenders or a bra, it does feel like it's difficult to take the game seriously. There was one mini-boss fairly early on who had to fight a couple of times, and the cutscene that introduces them had her open her arms to reveal a full-on lace basque. There's even an option to shorten the length of Eve's ponytail with no discernible use for it other than getting a better look at her arse. It all feels a little bit juvenile, and honestly had me referring to this as the Dead or Alive Souls for discussions when we were talking in the NGB team. It's a bit of a shame really, because the game itself is solid. As mentioned, the combat is a great deal of fun, and I found myself pushing through more and more of the encounters to get to the end of what is a relatively enjoyable, if not slightly by the numbers video game story. Like I say, I'm not going to get into spoiler territory here, but it held my attention for the duration, which is more than I can say for a lot of games I've had to review. The combat is deep enough to keep you engaged all the way through maxing out the skill tree. The Natiba are on that border between creepy and terrifying, with enough variance to have you on your toes as you make your way through the wonderful environments that are offered up. I just really wish that it weren't filtered through the lens of something that I feel like I need to turn the TV off for when my wife walks into the room. And please, if you're going to go off in the comments about wokery or whatever, just save it. It's a good game. Thank you for joining us, guys. If you have enjoyed this video, please do drop us a like, leave us a comment down below, and let us know, have you played the Stellar Blade demo? Are you going to be picking Stellar Blade up when it launches this Friday? Like I say, I'm not trying to get anything cancelled or do anything like that. You know, this is a good video game. It's just maybe not for me, which is fine. And if you want to go off in the comments, don't. Games can be for lots of different people. If this game is for you, great. If it's not for you, great. Everybody can just have a good time playing whatever they like. There's literally thousands of games around. But anyway, until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.